I'm going to introduce you some new advanced concepts. We have a few different scenarios in mind. We're going to speak to a few different main generations. What we're doing is baseline humiliation techniques, and they are humiliation tactics. They're not vulgar. You know, maybe someone walked into the office with a funny tie, and first person made fun of his tie, then the rest are making fun of his tie. And he takes it serious, but it's kind of humiliation. He's not going to wear that tie again. That's the type of behavior we're doing. What we're doing is attacking political correctness. Political correctness is a religion. It's a religion that's been forced on you. As white rabbits are coming out of this repressive conditioning and this heavily demoralized state, three interesting themes are coming up. We have the World War II generation asking subconsciously why they went to war. We have what I call the Schwa babies, the self-hating white baby boomers, the baby boomers. They're starting to feel guilty about their white guilt. The younger generation, they're reading websites like stuff white people like. What they're doing is starting to question why they feel so funny about being white. But this term keeps coming up, white self-hatred. We're not going to fight anything. We're not going to argue, but we are going to use terms and phrases and buzzwords. The whole process of the Schwa babies, the self-hating white baby boomers, as well as your local anti-racists, were started over two themes, guilt and humiliation. And we're going to go through how to use this to change their behavior as they're coming out. And what we're really doing is attacking. We're trying to attack the PCO, the political correctness officer in every area. Every area, every group has one. There are three levels. There's a low level, they're easy to break. You know, if you hand out some kind of British National Party flyers, they're the ones that call the police. There's only one in every area. They're easy to break because they're questioning things, and everyone around them will join in. There's a mid-level. There's only a handful of mid-levels for all the UK. There's only a handful of the big anti-racist speakers for all the United States. The middle ones tend to be the hardest. And then there's a high level, like John McCain, the high-level political correctness officers. They are scared to death. But let me explain to you where I'm coming from on the political correctness officer. There was a movie that illustrates it quite well. The Hunt for Red October was about a Soviet sub that was invented to start a world war. And Sean Connery played Marco Ramius. And he was going to defect with this sub before they could start a war. But the first thing he did was he killed the political officer because he knew he would never go along with it. He was too heavily programmed. What they would do in the Soviet Union is that they would take someone, they instill guilt, humiliation, and then they heavily program them. They're so heavily programmed that usually they're hated by all the white rabbits around them. Political officers in the Soviet Union were notoriously hated. Why? Because they're rats. In Nazi Germany, there was a group called the Hitler Boys, and the Hitler Boys were Nazi party members. They were heavily, heavily programmed. They were rats. And so they would try to take these political officers and they would stick them in different places to act as rats or to reinforce programming. Well, at a certain point in time, they're hated. And the famous examples were the U-boats. It is typical rabbit nature to hate political officers. Guess what happened? A lot of them ended up disappearing. Not that they were good Germans, it's just that no white rabbit can handle the political officer. At a certain point in time, male and female, they will rebel. And what I'm going to do in this is I'm going to give you rebellion tactics. Because whether it be the dog faces, the proud dog face of World War II, whether it be the Schwa babies, the self-hating white baby boomers, whether it be the Schwa, what I call the self-hating white fools, Chad in Iowa, and the head of the local anti-racists, they are all prone to guilt and humiliation. Why? Because that's how they were programmed. Humiliation is violent. Most of you listening to this, the times that you were most pissed off in your life is because someone humiliated you. We are preying on their base feelings. But not only is it effective on them, it's effective on everyone in the area. Sometimes the greatest reaction is not from that person, it's from the people around them. The first one I want to talk about is the one for the World War II generation. The World War II generation is feeling like they were ripped off, and they were. But in every group of them, you got the proud peacock, the dog faces. And in World War II, they were called the dog faces because they always obeyed authority. Now, they may work on the battlefield, but when they got them home, they put them in the GI Bill back in America, back in Great Britain, and then they brainwashed the living daylights out of them. Most of them didn't buy into it, but they didn't question authority. And a lot of them now are realizing they were ripped off. I was in a barber shop, and in the barber shop, it's run by an old Italian named Lou. And there's always a bunch of World War II guys in there, a handful of them, getting their hair cut or what they have left of it. And there's a proud peacock there, and he likes bragging about World War II. And all the other old World War II vets are rolling their eyes. And I said, you didn't go to World War II to defeat Hitler. And everyone in the room just came to a pause, and they looked at me. I said, you went to World War II so you could have a mulatto president. And that old man, the proud peacock, he wanted to fight. And Lou, the barber, said, now, settle down, and he just started laughing. He said, the young guy has it 100% correct. We got gypped. And then all of a sudden, all his buddies start shaking their head back and forth. Yep, he's 100% right. We have been lied to and screwed over. And then they started admitting it. They admitted it, and that made him even more angry. Because, he was being a PCO, a political correctness officer. He was in training mode. He was back in his programming, and I took him right to the baseline. I took him right to the World War II, and then I rubbed the salt in the wound by stating the obvious. That's all we're doing is stating the obvious and being brutally honest. Most of them will shake their head and admit it. They agreed that they came back and they were law-abiding citizens. But, that's how white rabbits are. White rabbits do not like conflict. If someone yells racism, they're going to shut down. They don't want problems. What you're doing is being a problem. You're invoking a reaction. There's no way around it. When someone's sitting around bragging about World War II and you hit them with that, it's going to get a reaction. If they call you racist, in your opinion, I'm a racist. You're just saying that because I'm white. Anti-racism is a code word for anti-white. And then go into the actual mantra. I'll try to do that no matter what, especially with old men, because they'll sit and listen. But typically, it will invoke a reaction. It can be used all over the world. You can use it in Germany. Those Americans went to war in World War II so they could have a mulatto president. You can use it in the United Kingdom. We all went to war with America so they could have a mulatto president. You can use it anywhere. And that is the one I've been using on the World War II generation. The self-hating white baby boomers are a very, very funny group because they are a failed generation. None of their programs put in place, their generations put in place, has ever worked. But right now, they are feeling guilty about being white because each one of them knows they screwed up. And the way you get to them is by stating the obvious. You call them self-hating white baby boomers. You tell them they're a failed generation. I was asked a typical question I get asked what I think about Obama. You should have heard the howls from the self-hating white baby boomers. And then they started talking about this race problem. And I interjected. I said, African for the Africans, Asia for the Asians, white countries for everybody. I did a mantra. I did the whole entire thing at a dinner party. Yeah, it takes a minute to do. It's memorized. And they sat, and they do not hear it when you do it. But then they went on. A couple of them went on. A couple of them got into it. And I just started saying, you're just self-hating white baby boomers. You can't admit you're a failed generation. You sit around and you drink your $10 Frappuccino lattes. And I said, you're exactly the type of upper middle class, self-hating white baby boomers that put me on a bus you would never in a million years put your kids on. And oh my goodness, were they upset. The woman walked away and went to the bathroom, and she was angry, visibly upset. It invoked a response. But what I am doing is I'm putting pressure right back to the point of guilt and humiliation where it all began, right to the baseline. And I'm doing it by bringing up socioeconomics. I'm doing it by name-calling. It is nana, nana, nana. It is you're a fool. You're an idiot. You're a failed generation. You're a schwa baby. You're a self-hating white baby boomer. Why do you hate yourself? Why are you such a stupid fool? She said, what are you going to do when the country becomes all multi? I said, well, right now the country's a failed country. It's going the way of California, permanently bankrupt. You got a Russian, German, Italian axis forming. The young, smart whites will get on a plane and they'll leave and they'll go into consolidation. Instead of saying all hope is lost, we're going to have some Rohawa race war, I said we're going to get on a plane and leave. Now, do I think that's actually going to happen? It could, all else being equal, but all else won't be equal in this one because the people running Anglosphere know it. But this lady didn't know that. She looked at me spellbound. She thought for a second her kids will get on a plane. Her kids will leave. I said, no, the old white baby boomers will sit around and eat cat food because the Mexicans won't be able to run everything. That evokes a response, too. I'm answering her question in a way she's not really used to. A couple of them started laughing. They didn't really know what to do. It works. Name-calling works because they all know they're self-hating white baby boomers. They all know they're a failed generation. They're nice rabbits. They've just been guilt-tripped to death and humiliated to death. What you're doing is you're just pretty much taking a big carrot and hitting with them in a way they don't expect. You're answering questions in a tone they don't expect. You're making them uncomfortable, and that's where change happens. Does it affect them as much as everyone in the area? Some it does, some it doesn't, but it definitely affects everyone in the area, because the last thing any of them want to do around you after that is to have you call them self-hating white baby boomers, because white people don't like being called names. It doesn't feel good, because they're all walking through Borders bookstore and seeing all the books on white self-hatred. They're very, most of these crowds are very well versed in what's on TV and what's going on, but my job is not to argue. I'm making my point. I'm going to go into Chad in Iowa. We're going to use Chad in Iowa. And Chad in Iowa was an upper middle class kid. The demographics of the anti-racist group is all the same. They're generally upper middle class. Most of them are some of them even from wealthy parents. They're white, they're generally males. Not always, but mostly males. They think they know everything, but they're heavily programmed, like the baby boomer. In this one, Chad would be fast-talking. He would be able to call names and be able to call names back. I'll just say, Chad, you're being a self-hating white animal or a self-hating white fool. I've used both of them, and they'll look at me, and he won't know what to say. Sometimes they'll walk away. Sometimes they'll engage, and sometimes they'll say, what do you think about Obama? I say, Africans have 50-plus countries in the world. Africans have half the world's natural resources. Africans have the largest population the world has ever seen, and Africans have the greatest piece of farmland the world has ever known, Africa. Africans live with me as a minority. I am a minority. Not much more I can do for them other than make them president. Now we can get serious about long-term solutions, like white European children getting a home. And he would just be floored. The only response is, of course, racism. Well, in your opinion, I'm a racist. You're just saying it because I'm white. Anti-racism is a code word for anti-white. No, anti-racism is this, that. I said, no, because no one's flooding Mexico with non-Mexicans in some attempt to end racism by creating a blended humanity in only Mexico. No one's flooding Africa with non-Africans in some attempt to end a blended humanity in only Africa. Only white countries are doing it. Only white children are affected. Only self-hating white animals like you support it. It's genocide. He will come unglued, and they will keep saying, no, because human beings are 99.9. I said, well, you don't understand my point, Chad. No one's flooding Mexico with non-Mexicans saying, gee, human beings are 99.9% all the same, so we're going to create a blended humanity in only Mexico. Only white countries are doing this. Only white children are being affected by it. Only self-hating white animals like you support it. It's genocide. He will keep engaging, and I will keep engaging as well. It will affect everyone in the area. He will not even know what's going on. And then once I start breaking through, I'm going to start bringing up social economics. But I will use it because he believes in it. And so what I'm going to do is start invoking even more guilt about his parents. I'm going to say, Chad, your parents self-hating white baby boomers. Did your parents move you around in a $2,000 stroller with 8 wheels? Did you go to rich school, Chad? I'm going to break him down. I'm going to break through. And once I break through, I'm just going to keep going at it. I'm going to keep calling him self-hating white animal. And I'm going to keep going on a consistent message over and over again. Every time he gives me something, I'm going to say, yes, Chad, but you don't understand my point. And I've seen cases where you can go through literally. They'll talk about race as a social construct, and I'll say, yeah, but you're missing my point. And then everyone in the room will start laughing. No one's flooding Africa with non-Africans saying, you know what, race is just a social construct. So we're going to create a blended humanity in only Africa. Only white countries are doing it. Only Indo-European children are affected by it. Only self-hating white animals like you support it. It's genocide. He'll ask, well, what is genocide? And then I may read him the Riot Act on genocide. I'll go into the rules for genocide, and they will look kind of shell-shocked. They never heard that definition before. But again, you've got to continuously engage. If he says if he keeps calling you racist, you say, in your opinion, I'm a racist. In your opinion, I'm a racist. In your opinion, I'm a racist. And you keep doing it until he calms down. Then you say, in your opinion, I'm a racist. You're just saying that because I'm white. Anti-racism is a code word for anti-white. The biggest effect it has is on the other rabbits in the area because they start making fun of him. That is where the change in behavior occurs, is when your peer group starts making fun of them. After you leave, they start calling him, Chad, you still hate yourself? But I'm not really after him. I'm using him and as a way to destroy the conditioning in the area. Because most of them want a reason to call him a name. They want a reason to get out. They want a reason to shut the door in his face. And what I'm doing is giving them permission. Most people don't mind a name to call someone if they're getting on their nerves. Typically, in an office, if some lady wears a dress to the office, the first woman that makes fun of her is the icebreaker. Then they all join in. That's really what you're doing. You're giving everyone a permission to be a white rabbit.